Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by the owner of MMA Signatures, A.J. Hiller. A.J., how are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing good. A.J., let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to before you started MMA Signatures. Let's talk about your background. Let's start there. What is your background in sports memorabilia? Were you involved in this industry, buying and reselling sports items? Was that something that you were doing before you got involved in MMA and started MMA Signatures? Could you explain what exactly your background is in sports memorabilia?
Well, it's kind of crazy. I've always been into sports my whole entire life,
Right.
Whether it was baseball, football, basketball. And at an early age, I'm 38 now, but when I was 5 years old, my mother and father enlisted me in Ishinru karate. Mm-hmm. And I did that for years and years and years, and then transitioned into boxing and then a lot of wrestling. But being a sports fan, I guess a sports nut, I'll call it, I've always been a collector, whether it was baseball cards, football cards, autographs. Mm-hmm. And what had happened was I've owned several stores throughout the Northeast, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. And it was kind of frustrating because I'll use Alex Rodriguez as an example.
Right.
I'd have an Alex Rodriguez jersey in my store, selling a Seattle Mariners, for example, Alex Rodriguez jersey. He was hot back then,
right.
Early in his career. Mm-hmm. So the jersey would sell for, say, $400. So my cost on that is somewhere right around $300. So then Alex gets traded from Seattle to Texas. So now that $300 investment that I have in this jersey is now worth nothing. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants an Alex Rodriguez Seattle Mariners jersey. So now I have to go out and buy Alex Rodriguez Texas jersey. Right. Buy him. Then he gets traded to the Yankees. So now the Seattle jerseys aren't worth anything. The Texas Rangers aren't worth anything because everybody's buying Yankees. Mm-hmm. So it reached a point that I started dabbling in the MMA. And I still remember my first MMA autograph. It was a Chuck Liddell autograph. And I was a huge Chuck Liddell fan. And I don't have to worry about the guys getting traded. They may switch camps. They may switch sponsors. But at the end of the day, they're still a fighter. And I don't have to worry about changing it up. So back about 6 years ago, my wife and I sold off the rest of our other sports memorabilia and invested everything into the MMA.
Mm-hmm. You said that you've always been interested in sports memorabilia, and your whole life you collected sports memorabilia, but was there anything else when you were growing up? Was there anything else that you were collecting, anything else that interested you? Action figures, comic books, lunch boxes, anything like that? Anything else besides sports that you collected?
It's crazy. I think about it like when I was a kid, and I'm 38 years old, so we're going back into the 80s.
Right.
All my friends were into G.I. Joes, Transformers, He-Man, Star Wars.
Yep.
And I was just into the baseball cards, baseball, football, basketball cards back then as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when did you become a fan of the sport? Before you decided to start collecting memorabilia and make that, your major business, when did you discover the sport?
And I'll tell you, I remember going to my buddy's house, Brian LeBar, in 1993. It was my first year of college. I went to Penn State, and where we live up in Pennsylvania, it's a lot of woodsy areas. So a lot of folks don't even have cable or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So he had a satellite dish, and back then we were doing a lot of our own little world of fighting, if you want to call it that. Backyard boxing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And he said, "You have got to come up to my house and watch this new Ultimate Fighting. They're going to have a tournament, and you could come up and watch it on my satellite dish." And he had a satellite dish that was probably a block long, it seemed like, back in the day. It was just a huge satellite dish. It looked like something from NASA. Mm-hmm. And so we actually, my buddy Brian, myself, and a few of our friends pitched in, and we actually watched the first UFC 1 tournament with Royce Gracie. And at that point, I was absolutely hooked. Mm-hmm. Absolutely hooked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So 1993 is when you started watching the sport, but you said it wasn't until 6 years ago you decided to go all in on MMA memorabilia. What kind of flipped the switch? Was it the fact that you brought up the Alex Rodriguez jersey thing the main thing, or were you seeing, some sort of gap here? Because if I go to I'm from Michigan, so if I go into a mall or something that has a sports memorabilia store, there's nothing combat sports. It's all Tigers, Lions, Pistons, Red Wings, stuff like that, but no MMA, no boxing, no kickboxing, none of that kind of stuff. Was it more the Alex Rodriguez thing that pushed you that way, or was it that none of these memorabilia stores have any of this stuff?
The number one thing is my passion for the sport, any kind of combat sport. Number two is just like you said, I was like a pioneer back 6 years ago. Nobody was really focusing solely on the MMA or just UFC items or anything like that. So I saw an opportunity and I jumped on it.
Now, not only is this, something that you've kind of trailblazed in, because you're one of the first guys to have done it, and you're, one of the guys who's doing it the best, I must say. I love your site, and I love the memorabilia you have on there, and I'm a big collecting guy myself, from everything, I always wanted to do a MMA glove collection from all over the world. I have some Strikeforce gloves and some UFC gloves, but I haven't been able to collect them all yet. But that's my main goal is to try to collect every MMA promotions glove, but we'll get to that a little bit later. One thing I wanted to bring up was, this is not just your business, this is a family business. Your wife's involved, your children are involved. When did that all start? Was it right off the bat here that everyone got involved, or was it just that as you were continuing to work and continuing to collect memorabilia, your kids kind of started to see, hey, this sport is kind of cool, and they were watching it on TV? How did this all come together where it truly is a family business?
Well, I guess the best way to say it is, I'm married. I've been married for 10 years this year, actually, to my wife, Michelle. And she saw all this money going out. She saw money coming in, but more going out. And I wanted to make her part of the business because, my money's her money, and her money's her money.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I guess
right.
That's the way to say it. So I wanted to make her a partner in the business. She loves the sport. We go to quite a few UFC events, and we go to quite a few other MMA events together as a family. And I thought there's not a better way than to make her a partner in the business. Now, my children are avid fans ever since they're little kids. So they just love meeting the fighters. We do quite a few of public signings and private signings, and my son especially. His name is A.J. too. Mm-hmm. He just wants to hang out with the guys,
Yeah.
And we go to different events, and it's funny because a lot of people will think that I'm utilizing my kids to get autographs, and in reality, my kids have bigger autograph collections than just about anybody that I know, because they go to the event and they'll just get like the boxing glove and get it signed by 30, 40 UFC guys or 30, 40 Bellator guys, for their own collection. Mm-hmm. And it's not a family business where I have my son, working under the table, doing the books, and sweeping up the office and stuff like that. It's more of a promoting. They love the sport. They wear our clothing. So they're almost like the advertisement, and now they really help out with the public and private signing.
Mm-hmm. Now, your store, you actually have a physical store. I mean, a lot of these guys that are dealing in memorabilia for MMA have just an online website where they sell it from their house, but you guys actually have a physical store. When did that start? Was that immediate when you decided to get into the MMA memorabilia? You immediately had the store that you were running your sports collectibles out, or did it start as a website, and when you started to gain some traction and get more customers and stuff like that, you decided to open up the store? Could you explain when the building came into play?
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you even bring this up, because I work backwards. Right now, we only operate out of our home.
Oh, really?
And I'll tell you exactly why. I've paid rent. It's anywhere from $1,000 a month for a location up to $15,000 a month for a location. And that $15,000 a month location, that was in the busiest mall up here in New Jersey. It's called the Garden State Plaza Mall. Mm-hmm. So the rent, $15,000 a month rent, is actually cheap for the mall. But what people don't understand is with a brick and mortar operation. operation. I have a real job. I'm a store manager for Walmart. I run a $50 million a year Walmart store.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't understand is when you have a brick and mortar place, when you do say $50,000 a month, that's not even covering that many of the expenses. Because say, for example, $15,000. So now you have to sell $15,000 worth of merchandise just to cover rent. Then you have a $4,000 a month payroll. So now that's another $4,000. So now we're up to $19,000. On top of that is utilities, maintenance fees, so on and so forth. So it's about $23,000 a month just in expenses. Now, if I'm selling things at a 50% margin, I have to sell $45,000 worth of merchandise just to break even, because I have to pay for the cost of goods sold. So, and it works the same way with a smaller place. If you're paying $1,000 a month, plus $3,000-$4,000 a month in payroll, it adds up. It adds up quick. We've also opened up a gym, and I had all the autographs and all my fighting gear. We deal exclusively with Clinch Gear, Everlast, Century, and it was almost like a one-stop shop. You go into the gym, instead of ordering your shorts online or your gloves online, it was right there for you. If you didn't have a pair of gloves and you're joining the gym, you could buy it, so on and so forth. But the same thing happened. Our members would sign up for 6 months, and then it would be summertime, and they would be gone for 3-4 months. And at the end of the day, it takes a special someone to walk into a place and say, "Oh, I want this." It's almost like an impulse buy. Where online, I'm currently I have customers in all 50 states and 32 countries. So it's very widespread. And that's not saying that we're not going to go back into a store eventually, because my house is getting pretty packed up with stuff. But for right now, we're focusing more on the online business, and our customers in all the states and countries.
How long ago did you shift operations over to your house?
We're just going back. Must have been October.
Oh, I see. Okay. And I wanted to change gears a little bit on you and talk about some actual items. Earlier, you touched on the Alex Rodriguez jersey, how he was traded from one team to another, and the team that you had, that jersey became worthless. So let me just get this straight. So let's say that you have a signed glove or a signed picture of Ronda Rousey. A signed Strikeforce picture of her and a signed UFC picture of her are worth the exact same? Is that how it works?
It depends, because there's a lot of Strikeforce fans, and then there's a lot of folks who are just UFC. See, Ronda Rousey, it doesn't matter what you put her on, she's going to sell. And I think there's a lot of collectors that go for, like, for example, one of each, like a glove, say, for example. They want a Ronda Rousey autographed Strikeforce glove, they want a Ronda Rousey autographed UFC glove. And the way that I look at it, Strikeforce gloves, they don't make them anymore.
Right.
They're more valuable than a UFC glove, which they still make. But as far as the pictures, I mean, that's a great question, because I've never even really thought about it that much. As far as if they're buying, what organization they're currently in. But I do know, like, a lot of fighters, for example, who early in their career were say with WEC. Let me use this as an example. When I go to an event, I'm getting everybody on the card.
Right.
20, 30, 40 of each, because those smaller guys one day are going to be the bigger guys that we're watching on TV.
Absolutely.
So it really doesn't matter, I don't think, to the hardcore collector what it looks like or what organization they were with.
Now, I brought up earlier my dream of collecting every glove under the sun that all these promotions have had, but the problem that I'm running into is that most of them have autographs on them. I mean, sometimes you can't find a complete set, sometimes they just have one glove in the set, but it's autographed. I'm trying to find just the ones that don't have any autographs on them, but I'm finding that very difficult to find. How much more valuable does an autograph make on a glove?
And that's another great question, because I don't know if you've checked on UFC.com or even Century.com. A pair of UFC official fight gloves retails at $80 now for a pair. So you figure each glove is worth $40. There's times that I'll sell a glove and it won't even sell for $40. So I'm,
Right.
That glove, for example, say sells for $30. So I'm in the hole $10 just on that glove, and that's not even including the signature. But if you have it authenticated, or if it comes from a reputable source, that autograph, definitely holds its value on the glove. So to me, it all depends on who the fighter is, similar to any sport. If it's a key fighter, say like Chuck Liddell, it's going to be a more valuable autograph than the glove without the autograph on it. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, definitely. Now, I've heard, because like I mentioned earlier, I'm a big collector of everything. I love comic books, action figures, sports memorabilia. I collect anything that I love. If it's a certain team, a certain fighter, a certain comic book hero, whatever it is, I'll just collect it. I just always have been fascinated with collecting things. So the whole thing about trading cards, I've been into many conventions and many specialty shops, and I've heard all the stories. Many people believe out there, if it's not, I would say pre 1985, I would say something around there. That's what I keep hearing. Pre 1985, anything from 86, 87. 2000, all that stuff, it's not worth anything. It might be worth something 30 years from now, but right now it's not worth much. MMA cards wise, Topps, they're flooding the market with all kinds of UFC cards. Are those worth anything right now, or is it something where when you buy them you're investing for the future?
Yeah, I really believe that they're flooding the market as well. I even think back in the days when you used to buy a pack of baseball cards, for example, and get a game-used bat piece, and it was one out of every 10,000 packs. So it wouldn't matter who the athlete was. It was worth money because it was a game-used bat piece. There was only 10 of them in the world, and the chances of you pulling it out of a pack was one out of every 10,000 packs. Mm-hmm. And now they start every pack or every 2 packs or 10 in a box. Whether it's an autograph, a piece of their fight-worn shirt or fight-worn shorts. So it does decrease the value when they're offering quantities like that. And like even you look at a card, fight-worn piece of the shorts, and it'll be numbered 1 out of 288 or 1 out of 500. So it doesn't make it that rare, Mm-hmm. So. I really think they are flooding the market with it. I mean, it's great for collectors because they could get them, whenever they want. Mm-hmm. But to turn a profit on them, it's really tough, especially when the box of cards is costing you, $150 or $200, and you're not even making that back on the cards that you're selling.
Mm-hmm. Now, another term I keep hearing in all these specialty shops, and I don't know if you watch Travel Channel, but the Toy Hunter, that's a popular show on that network. He brings this up a lot of times. There's a difference between rare, as in valuable, and then there's rare, hard to find. Could you give us an example of something that is rare, valuable, and something that's rare, like not worth a lot of money, but you have a better chance of finding a needle in a haystack? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Fight-worn. If you can get any kind of fight-worn memorabilia from the fighter, whether it's their shorts, their gloves, hand wraps, walkout shirt, that's rare. Because it's for a specific fight. It's you have that. You have those items. I've had Ronda Rousey fight-worn shorts from when she fought Julia Budd. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's rare to have those. Now rare as far as some fighters. It's hard to get, like an Evan Tanner, for example. Right. You can't get Evan Tanner anymore. He's God rest his soul. He's passed and he's not signing any more autographs. So if you can obtain an Evan Tanner autograph, that's something that's rare. So it comes down to the availability of the fighter, whether or not the fighter's easy to obtain. A lot of the Brazilian fighters aren't in the United States. They don't train in the United States, so to get their items, it's rare unless they're here fighting. Fedor, anything Fedor is tough because the only time that he's in the United States, which is very rare, is when he fights.
Mm. Now, with all the conventions that are going on, the UFC Fan Expo and all these, signings at weigh-ins and signings like, off scene, like at specialty shops and at like after parties and viewing parties and all that kind of stuff. How important is having that certificate of authenticity? Because right now anyone can go out and get an autograph for somebody, but at the same time anyone can get something that isn't authentic. How important is it to have that CA?
To me, it's the most important thing in the world, and it's pretty dynamic because being in the sport so long, or in the collecting of MMA so long, a lot of the most reputable companies in the world, PSA, DNA, JSA, they didn't have any background on the autographs. Mm-hmm. So actually, JSA, I have a great relationship with them. They actually utilize my autographs in their database to verify. So in turn, luckily, MMA Signatures LLC, we have a great reputation. So when someone sees the hologram MMA Signatures with my, each one comes with a tamper-proof holo, and they can verify it on their website, they know that it's something that was obtained, in person, either by myself at a signing or an event that we attended, send-ins, or one of my. I have a crew of folks who go to different fights and obtain autographs. So they know that they're getting, an autograph that was obtained in person. It's not an opinion. It's a fact. This autograph was obtained by this person. So at the end of the day, the certificate of authenticity is what's worth the money, not the autograph. Because without that piece of paper or something that says that this item was, guaranteed to be signed by this person, means everything. Now you have a lot of fly-by-night people who, will just put, this, certificate of authenticity, Joe's sports cards, and then that's it.
Right.
No phone number, no address, no nothing. If you look on my authenticities, it's got my website, it's got my email address, it's got my cell phone number. So if anybody has any questions, you can call me. And, chances are I could tell you the exact location that the item was signed at,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, what about the people that are selling stuff online with like a photo of the person signing that thing? Is there any like credibility to that at all? Like, does that count for anything, or should people be going out on their own and trying to get this stuff certified when they buy it from somebody who's taking a photo of someone signing it? Because for all we know, it could be taken anywhere and just slapped in there on an eBay listing. Is that credible at all?
In some cases, it is, depending on who the seller is. But you could Google, any fighter in the world, and just Google, say, for example, Dan Henderson signing, mm-hmm. and you're going to find a picture of Dan Henderson signing an item.
Right.
And to me, the best authenticity, if anything, is a picture of you with the person, or you in the picture with the person signing the item. Because now you're saying, this is me. This is me with this person, and I'm guaranteeing that it's authentic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, autograph-wise, how many autographs would you say you've gotten over, the course of when you started getting into the MMA memorabilia game? Give us a number of how many autographs you've obtained, and also the difference between your personal collection and the stuff that you sell.
Okay. Currently, this is going to sound crazy. Currently, in my autograph collection, I guess we'll call it, I have over 20,000 MMA autographed items.
Whoa. Everything
from photos, gloves, fight-worn items, cards, even index cards. I have quite a large collection. Now, in my personal collection, and I can't say that I even have a personal collection because everything is for sale.
Right.
If somebody were to call me and say, do you have a Dan Henderson signed Pride glove? No, I do. That I have one hanging on my wall, but for the right price, that would be hanging on somebody else's wall.
Mm-hmm. in the beginning and maybe still now, is it hard for you to get away from being a fan and putting the business first? If there's something that is really out there that you really want, it's extremely rare, you've been looking for it, but then somebody comes in and says, hey, you got this thing, I want to buy it from you. Is that hard to separate yourself when selling items, or have you got it down to a science now where you can take yourself out of it and say, what, I might love it, but I need to sell it?
Yeah, I used the Ronda Rousey fight on shorts, for example. That was the piece that I bought. I wanted it so bad. I wanted it in my collection, and I know that there was a lot of interest in it, so I decided to sell it. I'm a huge Dan Henderson fan, and I have a ton of Dan Henderson, and he's one that I'm really hard to part with. But at the end of the day, I would sell it for the right price. Because I could still get Dan Henderson items. Is that how the partnership with Clinch Gear all came together? You're just a big Dan Henderson fan? Believe it or not, yes. Yeah.
Really?
And I've been following Dan, since his Pride days, and I just always loved his style of fighting. So being a Dan Henderson fan, I'd go on Clinch Gear and buy a lot of his clothing, whether it was board shorts or walkout T-shirts. And when I was opening up one of my stores, I wanted to start carrying it. So I opened up the wholesale account and have a great relationship with Clinch Gear. And they actually, I do a lot of buyouts with Clinch Gear, so they'll tell me if they have 100 shirts and they want to close it out. So it's an amazing company.
Yeah, I love Clinch Gear. It's funny you mention it because I'm wearing a shirt right now. I didn't even know I was wearing a shirt, but I got one on right now. I have to text you a picture of me wearing it. But I am wearing a shirt right now, and I love Dan Henderson. I'm a big fan of him. He's been one of my all-time favorites, and I'm a big fan of that company. I'd love to get just a clothing sponsorship deal. I love that, but maybe in a couple of years, I don't know. But is there anything else, any other companies right now that you have a partnership with?
Not really. I do have wholesale accounts with, Century. I have wholesale accounts with Everlast, Fuji, which is more of a jiu-jitsu company. I get a lot of my gis from them. Giants. I do a lot with Giants. I don't have any partnerships with any of these other companies. Just mainly Clinch Gear. Not saying that I wouldn't go with another company. Clinch Gear has been great with me, for me, and I just support them. Being a fan, that's a part that's tough. Separating the fan and the businessman, because I'm such a huge Dan Henderson fan that I want to support his company.
Now, how are you acquiring the autographs and the gloves and the fight-worn stuff and everything, under the sun? How are you acquiring this? Is it mostly going out there to, a fan expo or a signing and stuff like that and acquiring it yourself? Or is it somebody coming to you and saying, hey, I got this, are you interested? And then negotiating a deal and making a deal where you can end up and make something after you resell what you bought from them? Is it more of people coming to you with the items, or you actually going out and acquiring them from the fighters? And could you explain how you're acquiring your stuff?
Yeah, sure. I do a ton of private, public appearances, and then we go to about 10 events a year. So when I go to an event, I'll have a couple guys with me, and we just graft for from Tuesday until Saturday or Tuesday until Sunday, and the goal is always to get 1,000 autographs, whether it's the gloves or photos or shorts, something like that. And each event we get between 800 and 1,200 autographs, and so that's one way that we obtain them. The private signings were, I'm at a point of my life, I guess, or a point of my business life, that I want to get back. I want to get back to the fighters. They work so darn hard. They're not getting paid during training. They don't make all that much money fighting. They're not at a boxer status for some reason. It blows my mind why they're not making boxer money. So I want to get back to them. So whether it's through a private signing, whether it's through a public signing, where I can actually, give them money, to help out with their training, to help out to put food on the table while training. And we do a lot of sponsorships. Just this month, we're sponsoring Cody Bollinger for his event that he has coming up this month, Joe Riggs, and we're really excited about doing Hector Lombard for 171. And that's a way that I get obtain autographs. There's, whenever we sponsor, part of the negotiation deal is that we're going to get autographs in return, and also fight-worn memorabilia. So, for example, for Hector's fight, we're going to be, due to the sponsorship, we'll get autographs, and then we're also getting his fight-worn shorts for UFC 171.
Is that where the sponsorship stuff started? Was you wanted to give back to the fighters, or was it something where, we can kill two birds with one stone? We can help out a fighter, and also we can get our name out there. Was it more of the promoting yourself, or was it just solely helping out a fighter?
I think it's a little bit of both. Helping us out. Getting autographs, because some of these guys are really, really tough to obtain, and the other thing is helping out the fighters. Now, we started sponsoring more at local levels, smaller venues in the local area. And then, we started branching out into the bigger organizations just about a year ago. And it's both. It's really both. It's one, I can't sit back and say, when, Joe Riggs wore our shorts with our logo on our business school. Because at the end of the day, people are watching the fight; they're not looking to see, whose logo's on somebody's shorts.
Right.
It's really to help the fighter out. It's really to help the fighter out and get good items at the same time. Yeah. So it's to your point, killing two birds with one stone.
Replica belts, this has become something that you guys have really dug into. When did that start? Was it more something where you're like, there's a demand out here, people want a belt, people want a replica belt, or was it something where it just kind of was the perfect storm where you were able to, find someone to build them for you, and then you put them out on the market, and then you realized that there was a market for them? Could you explain where the replica belts came into play?
Yeah, sure. If you ask me, one thing that I do collect, it is belts.
Right.
And I'm a belt collector, so there was belts out there that I wanted, and they just weren't offered for sale. So I contacted a few actually belt designers, belt makers, and we settled on one that's based out of the UK. They actually get their leather, I believe, out of Pakistan. I don't know if the leather's cheaper in Pakistan or what. For example, I wanted the ultimate belt.
Right.
You couldn't get it. The only people who had it were who had it.
Right.
Dan Severn, Hoy Stacy had one, and Mark Coleman had a different one. And I wanted one of those ultimate belts. So I sent them the design and did the copyright. It can't be exact. There's got to be differences, whether it's, the way it's the fonts of the letters or something like that. Something has to be different. So when I told them that I wanted these, the price was astronomical if I only wanted one, because they had to build the mold, they had to do this. So I was getting them cheaper if I bought 5 at a time. So I wanted to find out if there was a market for these belts. So I started putting on my Facebook, on my website, I'm going to be getting in, ultimate belts, or, Pride Grand Prix belts, anyone interested. And that's when I realized that there was a huge demand for it, because I'm at a point right now that I can't get the belts in fast enough. I can't get them made fast enough for the demand of the belt.
Now, speaking of Pride Grand Prix, I'm sure you're aware of that yesterday, a auction for Mark Coleman's 2000 Pride Grand Prix trophy and his check were up online. It was listed for, I believe, $24,500, something like that. It didn't end up selling. Are you surprised by that?
You know what, I am, and it's crazy. My wife and I discussed purchasing that, because it's one of a kind. That's that rare item that, the person who gets that has a gold mine, because there's not many of those trophies out there. There's not many of those large checks out there.
Right.
And, if it goes back up on the auction, depending on what the price is, that may one day be in my collection. Yeah.
Yeah. I was shocked that it didn't sell, because that's like having Babe Ruth's bat. Like, it's crazy. It's a one of a kind. And some people say it's the greatest tournament ever. And it's got so much history to it, because that was where Mark Coleman got I mean, pardon my expression, but got a second chance at life, because, his career wasn't going well. He left the UFC, and this was, really turned him around and got him some big fights, big paydays after that. But without that tournament, I don't really know what happens to Mark Coleman. So I was shocked when this didn't happen, and they threw in the check. Now, how much separate would you say that these things are worth? Like right now, if you had to put a price tag on them, like the check and the trophy by themselves, how much would you say trophy's worth this, check's worth that? What would you price those at?
Me personally, see, those one of a kind items, they're worth whatever it is to who buys it or who the owner is. So if I were to buy them separately, say for example, if somebody said, "Hey, what will you give me for this check?" I would say the check is probably worth $5,000, and the trophy is probably worth about $20,000.
Now, this is what you would pay for them, or this is what you would turn around and sell them for?
Oh no, that's me personally. And it's funny because my wife and I discussed it. Whether or not we were going to, make an offer on these or bid on them. I personally wouldn't spend $25,000. I'd probably pay $15,000. Thinking that somebody would pay, $25,000 for it, so that it would leave room for me to make a profit if I were to sell it. See, the value of it, you really can't put that value on it because it is that one of a kind. It's worth whatever somebody will pay for it. There's nothing to base it off of, because to my knowledge, I don't think there's ever been a check or a trophy ever sold. So if Dan Henderson were to sell it, and you really can't compare the two, but if Dan Henderson were to sell his and it sold for $50,000, I would think to myself that Mark Coleman's is worth just as much, because they're that rare. This is a very rare item, and it didn't sell for the $24,000 that it was going for. So what is something that would be more valuable than this? This is a one of a kind item. What's something out there that would be worth $25,000? Is there anything that comes to mind? Yeah, I would think the Grand Prix belt, the belt itself. Dan Henderson, one of his Pride belts. The actual belt that they won, I think it'd be worth more money. That's probably the highest item that somebody could buy financially.
Now, what is your holy grail? Like, what's something out there that if you could acquire this and resell it, or acquire this and just keep for yourself, what's something out there that, if you get, your life would be complete? What's the holy grail for you?
That's a tough one. That's definitely a tough one. It would definitely have to be, I would say, Dan Henderson's Pride Grand Prix Championship.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that would stay in my collection forever. I'd probably wear the belt. I go to work with the darn thing. But that's just it's so rare. Think about how many Pride champions there's been versus how many UFC champions there's been. The rarity of that Pride, those Pride belts are, they're extremely rare. You can't get them, and it's funny because I was talking to one of my representatives from Clinch here, and he was a very close friend with Dan, and Dan had him go wash his truck out, take it to the car wash, get it washed, and underneath his seat was this Pride Grand Prix belt.
Really?
And then he told Dan, he said, "Dan, your belts are underneath your seat." He said, "Oh, I was wondering what happened to them." And, it's funny because when you possess something like that, it to some people it may mean the world. Some people it's just another trophy or a belt. Or to others, it's everything to them.
Have you seen one of those live? Because they're massive. I saw Vanderlei Silva's one from the 03 Pride Middleweight Grand Prix. It's a beast. That thing's humongous. Have you seen one live?
I've never seen a Pride live. No, I've never. I can honestly say I've never seen that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Now, what would be worth more? Would it be the Pride Grand Prix belt, or would it be the actual title belt? Because the one that Dan Henderson has, the middleweight belt that he took from Vanderlei Silva, that's the only one, because when he won that belt, they just gave him Vanderlei's belt. They didn't reprint one like they do now, because in the UFC, once the title changes hands, they retire the belt and let the previous champion keep it, and the new one gets a new belt. But in Pride, they just when the title changed hands, they gave it to whoever the new champion was. Which would be worth more? One that was for a tournament, or one that was the only one that maybe a couple people had held?
Yeah, the only one that a few of them had held. That one belt that, like you said, Dan owns it currently, but before that, Wanderlei had it. I mean, that's a huge piece, and you couldn't even put a value on that. Now you get them both to sign it, or now it's that rare, one of a kind, irreplaceable item.
Who's the most popular fighter out there in terms of memorabilia right now?
It's got to be Ronda Rousey, without a doubt. She's just hot right now. Everybody wants Ronda items. As far as on the men's side, there's a couple different ones. It's John Jones. His stuff is always pretty popular. Chuck Liddell stuff is very popular still. Someone that blows my mind why they're not popular. The pioneer of the sport is Hoist Gracie.
Really?
And I'll tell you what the problem is. This is what I think the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with Dan Severn, Don Fry, even Mark Coleman. The sport is so new that and it keeps on growing and growing and growing. But most of the fans have only started watching it over the past 5-6 years.
Right.
So they don't know who these guys are. And go back to who else is popular as far as selling Cain Velasquez. Mostly all the champions sell pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Forrest Griffin, believe it or not, he's a great seller. Chael Sonnen, definitely one of the more popular ones.
Mm-hmm. Who would you say all time is?
All time would have to be Chuck Liddell.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can see that. I mean, he's one of the only guys. When I first started watching 02, 03, it was him, it was Rampage, and Tito. Those were the only three guys I knew, 02, 03, around that time. And so I can see that, definitely. Now, earlier you brought up a good point. You brought up how people have really only been looking at the sport the last 7-8 years. They're not really digging in deep. People haven't been. There's not a lot of people who've been around since day one, like you. They don't really know who Hoist Gracie is. They don't know who Dan Severn is. They don't know who Marco Huas. All these guys who blazed the trail, the pioneers of the sport. They don't really know who those guys are. Do you find it crazy that you're able to basically acquire stuff that was there since day one? You can right now go out and find something that has been like the equivalent to like finding like a Mickey Mantle game worn jersey or a Babe Ruth game worn jersey. You wouldn't be able to find those. Maybe there's just one in existence now, but you can find like Ken Shamrock's trunk somewhere from all his fights. They're out there somewhere. Do you find that crazy? Does it ever blow your mind when you think about this, that you're right now here where people like were in the 20s in baseball and in the 30s in baseball? Does it ever kind of catch you off guard thinking about that kind of stuff?
Some of it really does, but the reason that you could still get it, I believe, is it's unfortunate. But after these fighters are retired, they really don't have any other income, and they've been hoarding. I guess we'll use the word all their fight memorabilia because it meant something to them. Like this was my first fight, my second fight, first time in the UFC, so on and so forth. So they've been holding on to their own fight worn merchandise for 20 years. And unfortunately, after they're done fighting, some of them don't have any other ways of getting income.
Mm-hmm.
So So then they start selling off their items. So it's good for the collector to start obtaining some of this merchandise, and it's a shame that there's no pensions
right.
for the fighters, that they have to in turn sell stuff that's close to them, dear to their heart, memories.
With you being a hardcore fan of the sport and being a fan of all the fighters that are competing in this sport, does it kind of you have kind of like a little battle inside of you, because obviously there's rare items that are out there, but like you mentioned, the fighter that had these items and was holding on to them are giving them, selling them because that's their only source of income. Because I looked at this Mark Coleman trophy, and the first thing that came to my mind was sadness. I was very sad because he's obviously getting rid of this trophy for a reason. He's probably fallen on some hard times, and I have to assume that, because why else would he be selling a trophy where like I mentioned earlier, he kind of got that second chance at having a career. So is that something that kind of wears on you as time goes by, of thinking about these rare items?
Yeah, it really does, because you never want to see anybody struggle. And you want it, like, think about Mark Coleman. How many little kids, how many adults looked up to this man? He was their idol, and now he's at a point of his life, what you would assume by him selling the trophy,
right?
That he really needs the money, and something that close to him, probably the most prestigious thing that he's ever won, is now on eBay. That saddens me as well. It really does.
And then there's also the kind of side story to that story, because basically, unless you're buying it to keep, some people are buying to resell. So if Coleman sells this trophy, he's not really even getting the full value. Is that something that crosses your mind at all too? The part about the money, he might not even be getting the high end. Right.
And I think to myself, because I do a lot on eBay, you could sell something for $24,000 or $25,000. One, you have to claim that on your taxes.
Right.
You're going to get a 1099. The other thing is after PayPal, after eBay, it's about a 20%. So right off the bat, after Mark or whoever's selling the trophy, they're only going to get about $20,000 for that trophy. After all the fees and everything, and on top of it, a 1099. So, to the person that bought it, of course, they paid $25,000 for it. They got what they paid for it, but the person that sold it didn't even get what they sold it for.
Now, if there was a crystal ball that you could look into and predict the future, what would you say is an item out there or items out there right now that are made available to the public? Like, I can just go out and buy them from the store. I don't have to go to a specialty store and pay a lot of money for a rare item, something that basically anybody can find right now. What's something out there right now that isn't rare, but 20, 30 years from now we could be talking about some big money? Anything?
I would say gloves, because if you think about it, the UFC hasn't changed their glove style now for about maybe it's got to be 5-6 years since they had those Owano style gloves.
Right.
And it's only a matter of time that these glove styles are going to change. So I would definitely stick with the gloves.
Definitely. Now, AJ, before I let you go, Twitter, Facebook, website, any place that people can keep up with you and your company, anything like that, go ahead. The floor is yours. Plug away.
All right. If you need to reach us, you can call us at 570-872-1444. Our website is MMASignaturesUSA.com. You can catch us up on Facebook, like our page, MMA Signatures, or follow us on Twitter at AJ MMA Signatures.
AJ, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it.
Mike, thank you. Great time, and looking forward to doing it again.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely have to have you back on. I love talking about collectibles, and I love MMA, so you're bringing the perfect storm to me, so I thank you for that, and have a great day.
You too. Hey, next time we'll do it a three-way call-up. I'll get a fighter on the line with us.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, buddy.
Yep.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.